pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Price. We want to thank everyone for coming to the meeting this evening. We welcome you to Perrysburg High School. Because every student, family member, and staff member, and the community member's safety is important to us, we want to first identify the closest exits to us. So make sure you look around as the closest exit to you may be behind you. They can be found on the sides of the auditorium, especially in behind. In case of an emergency, there is an AED that can be found out in the hallway. And so we ask that you would find that in an emergency. The address to this high school, if you need it in an emergency, is 13385 Roachton Road, Perrysburg, Ohio. Our first agenda item is to adopt the proposed agenda, item 2.1. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Bennington, Ms. Latimer, thank you. Just to note, all public comments will occur as item 5. This will include both agenda items and topics other than the agenda items. Could I have a motion to approve? We have a motion. Mr. Juror, could you do roll call, please?
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes. Mr. Juror, continue roll call.
Yes. Laura's here.
Ms. Mankey.
Yes.
Okay.
To those observing the board meeting tonight, as I mentioned about public comment, I want to just inform you a little bit about that. We follow policy 0169.1, which means that anyone who wishes to make comments to the board as part of item 5 must register their intent to speak to the board by signing up on the clipboard that's located, I believe, when you came in. Once item 5 begins, once public comment begins, you will not be able to sign up. So you must sign up before we begin item 5. If you don't wish to comment, instead you have a handout, or if you have a handout that is a part of what the information you want to provide to the board, we also ask that you leave that with the sign-ups, and that will be brought up to us at that time. We'll move on to item 3.1, which is to recognize the last of our fall athletic state qualifiers, and I'll ask Mr. Hostler to introduce the coach and the team.
Yep, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. We appreciate you being here this evening. And on a cold January day, it seems kind of strange to be recognizing fall sport athletes, but we had so much success this past fall that we had to break up when those recognitions were going to take place. So this is the last installment, and I'm honored to introduce Coach Jorge Diaz. Coach, if you could come down and maybe say a few words about the team, and we'd like to bring your team down for recognition. So.
Well, thank you very much for the recognition. You know, it is a pleasure coaching this wonderful group of athletes. I have the pleasure of coaching them, some of them since they were very little, you know, and it's fun to see them grow into wonderful soccer players. We had a few losses in the season, but we had a tremendous run that took us all the way to states, and we're very fortunate that we had 3 wonderful captains. We had Grace that and we will have a captain for next season as team here. You just raise your hand. We're gonna miss you, and we're very proud of you.
Thank you, Coach Diaz, and thank you to the team. I know that for so many of you that this is not just 4 years or 6 years, but you've been playing this sport since you were in preschool, and it's probably a part of your life, every part of your life that you remember. Don't leave, we want to take a picture. Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt, I apologize.
No.
So we're gonna give you some certificates of recognition, and the Board of Education celebrates your achievement and values your excellence in your performance every day as a student and role model for your fellow students. Perrysburg School District is very proud of you. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go in order. Liza Burr. Emil Francis. Easley Jones. Come here. She's the littlest one's representative today, Ms. Medford. Captain Grace. Because they got a little wrong, so I apologize. Thank you, Michael. McGuire. Kendall and AK. Sylvia, please speak. Alexis. Ivan Brown. Lexi Becker. Emma Harkle. Liza Willington. And I'll bring this to Jared. Thank you very, very much.
Congratulations again on another very successful season. I couldn't quite tell, but it seems like there's enough returning that we'll look for good things again. Yeah, it's good arm workout. At this time, we normally take a 5-minute break. If anyone still needed to sign up, that would be now. Is there anyone that still needed to sign up? And if not, Don, don't go too fast. Does anyone still need to sign up to speak during this public comment time? Then I'm going to suggest that we skip over the 5-minute break, if that's okay with everyone, and go right into the public comment time. We have normally 15 minutes allotted for agenda items and 15 minutes for non-agenda items. We have moved that together into one 30-minute block of public comment time. And that should be enough time if everyone stays within our time limit. I'm going to ask that you approach the microphone here in the front, and I will call you up by the order in which you signed up to speak. When you come to approach the microphone, before you start to speak, we will ask you to identify yourself by name, your address, and then any group or affiliation that you have that might be appropriate to your comments. I ask that all statements be directed to me as board president is presiding at the meeting. We ask that no other people be addressed in your comments. As I noted earlier, if you have something you want to share with us, rather than take the time to pass it out, you can put it in the back and we'll make sure that that gets to us. Each person will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. At the end of 3 minutes, I'll give you a warning at 2.5 minutes, and at 3 minutes, I'll ask you to complete the sentence that you're sharing. This is to make sure that everyone has a chance to share tonight. So with that, I'd like to invite forward Courtney Bierman to speak first.
Hello, my name is Courtney Bierman. My address is 105 Bentley Drive. I am a community member and a parent. I am here advocating for some of our youngest learners regarding the proposed shortened schedule at HPI to save money. To my knowledge, this proposal was not presented to the public before the November vote. Cutting these elective STEM classes leaves HPI with 30 to 40 minutes, which was described in a previous board meeting as a time where nobody can oversee the students. At schools, students are not being overseen. They are learning, being enriched, and receiving supports and gap-closing efforts. I believe the following ideas have the potential to work. They keep instructional time despite the loss of electives. If ending 30 to 40 minutes earlier will help save money for busing for the elementary. Respectively, moving start and ending times for both HPI and elementary by 15 to 20 minutes would create 30 to 40 minutes for you without loss of instructional time. HPI can extend daily instructional time in its core content classes. This would be specifically beneficial for students and teachers in ELA. The ELA curriculum, Wit and Wisdom, has recommendations for lesson times ranging between 60 to 90 minutes daily for this age group. The current ELA block is only 45 to 50 minutes. More time for ELA would allow for better pacing and more enriched, in-depth student learning. Additionally, next school year, both 5th and 6th graders may be placed on RIMS, Reading Intervention Monitoring Plans. The state requires 90 minutes of ELA instruction for students on a RIM. A longer ELA block could help to meet those minutes, especially for students on RIMS without SDI minutes, specially designed instruction minutes. HPI can maintain daily instructional minutes by modeling its schedule like the elementary schools, which have no electives. And finally, in the spirit of transparency, if these options are not feasible, I ask that the community is told why. What, if any, alternative ideas have been fully considered and fully explored to make this truly the only option? We cannot give our children a minimum education in a society that expects the maximum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sperman. At this point, I'd like to invite up Melissa Malloy.
Good evening, I'm Melissa Malloy. I live at 26677 Foxton Court. I am a parent. I have a son at Perrysburg High School, he's a junior, and I have a daughter in 7th grade who is at the junior high. I am standing here tonight with this shirt on, and I want to make it prevalent to you why we are here. Tonight, several of us are wearing shirts that say, I am witness for, so she isn't. I am here tonight with several staff members of Perrysburg High School and within the district, but they have to remain silent. I am also here with many community members that do not. You have a levy coming up, but your community is left in shock with the latest findings of the investigative report and of the resignation of a teacher at Perrysburg High School. This comes after another resignation in 2018 for misconduct of a teacher in the district. Not only that, but many other incidents are still coming up. I feel this topic needs addressed in response to the support of our teachers in this district, and most importantly, the victims. Witness 4 is a teacher at Perrysburg High School. Tonight, I am witness 4. There was something that happened to me in high school that has haunted me ever since. It made me sick, alone, betrayed. I couldn't go to my parents. They would make such a big deal about this. It would be embarrassing. My friends would think that I am in need of attention. My boyfriend would say the same. I live with darkness. I try to move on. I come back to my school, my high school, to make a difference in the lives of children. I picked this career because I want to do what's right for children. I want to make a difference and be someone that they can trust. I finally get that chance. I'm standing in a staff meeting and I hear of someone else in my situation. All of a sudden, I am not alone, abandoned, or afraid. I have someone here that understands that I know that I didn't ask for this to happen. I tell others of my experience. It's healing. I can finally share my thoughts. I can finally find my inner confidence. I find myself again. Others encourage me to tell someone. I'm encouraged to go to my building principal and file a police report. I do. I tell people that I felt needed to know, people that might be able to help others, people I know I can trust. And then I'm asked by my building principal, what is my goal here? I'm screaming inside. This should not happen to others. This cannot continue. There are more like me. What do you mean, what is my goal here? Nothing happens. I become even more lonely, afraid, destroyed. I'm embarrassed. Now what? What will my peers think? The people in charge brush it off as it's no big deal, but it was a big deal. This is a horribly big deal. I retreat in my shell. I am more alone now than I've ever been. I cry. I am in panic. I have nightmares. I dream about all of this. I cannot sleep anymore. Day in and day out is a nightmare to me. I have to see the person that did this to me. I work with him side by side. I know that others think nothing of this. The people that are supposed to help me have failed me again. I am afraid. I have been failed by a system that is in failure over and over. I am not just witness 4. I am every victim of abuse, whether it be sexual, physical, or mental. I am my daughter, who is 13, her whole life ahead of her, trying to navigate life in hopes that someone protects her. I am not just witness 4. I am everyone in this room, and I live in this message I express to you. Do not fail me now.
Thank you, Ms. Malloy. Levy Clark.
Hi, Madam President. I'm Nikki Clark. I live at 24930 Saddlehorn Drive. I'm a parent of an 8th grader, president of our junior high parents organization, and I have a junior in the high school here that's an exchange student. So, as an involved parent of a district, I and many others are feeling an extreme concern based on the way this entire abuse situation has been handled. We are looking at this board and asking for fast and fair results that help us see that our kids, teachers, and staff safety is at the forefront of everyone's minds. The communication to families in the district on this is downright infuriating. We had to find out through a news article that came out on Christmas Eve that there was even something going on, and had been for quite some time. And when that article came out, district silence. Yesterday, within 15 minutes, I had a message across 3 forms of media telling me that our kids didn't have school. Why would there not be a single notice sent to us about something like this? Then, here we are 3 weeks later, and another bombshell drops, which is the investigation itself. And again, our district is behind with sharing any information, and when we do get it, it is deflecting and unsympathetic at best. It paints a picture that only Cookson, who's been here a few years, compared to when this started, is to blame. Removing Headline is just the beginning. The police report was filed in 2022, which our superintendent's office was made aware of at the time. Why was this man allowed to continue and be around our students for an additional 2 years? And only when an investigation was suggested by ODE did something happen. Since this man was allowed to retire, are we canceling his license so he can't go to another district or anywhere around kids again? What is our district doing to ensure he isn't on our property to interact with our students again? Where and when is the investigation into the entire process going to begin so that we can see that you understand how serious it is, that there are staff members being treated terribly if they speak out about this? Who's leading this? I know a position like Justin Foltz exists, but then to see that there's no support offered to the staff or the students, I'm now wondering what exactly is that job? Where's the announcement for some sort of crisis group for our current students who have probably been affected by this? Where's the apology from our admins to those who were affected? And most importantly, where are all the reports these victims made? We are an amazing school district because of our teachers and staff, and in spite of the administrative roadblocks they experience. We get to boast amazing ratings based on our students and their performance, in spite of the fact that there's an underlying current of bad behavior by the trusted adults. I can't wait to see how much better we get when we aren't damaging people in the process of getting those results. The question is, are those who are involved going to remove themselves, or are we going to have to wait for them to be discovered as this journey begins? I would suggest the former so that we can move quickly. A district with concurrent failed levies has no time to waste cleaning house so that community confidence can be restored. And here's the thing.
15 seconds.
Nobody expects perfection in our community, but we expect accountability and responsibility. See it, own it, solve it, move on. We don't want people afraid to report bad news. We want to know swift action was taken when something undesirable happened. As was said yesterday on our podcast, even the most beautiful garden can grow weeds. It stays beautiful by pulling those as you see them.
Ms. Clark, you need to
Thank you.
wrap up. Thank you. I'm going to ask Walt, can you double check the microphone, or maybe we need to have people speak more directly into it?
Yes.
You can hear fine? Okay, we're getting a little bit of an echo, but, okay. Do you want to move? Okay. All right. Next up, I'd like to call Derek Zilka.
Good evening. My name is Derek Zilka. I'm from 14861 Saddle Brook Court. I am an alumnus, concerned parent with 3 children in the district, including 1 daughter. Tonight, I want to acknowledge the seriousness of the situation before you. John Henline's misconduct that has been permitted for decades is deeply troubling, and the suffering these women have experienced from your inaction and cover-up like Witness 4 is tragic. However, let's not forget those who haven't had the luxury of a full investigation into their reports of assault and harassment. 2 stories come to mind. One of a PHS swim coach who endured relentless harassment, and another that was shared last night on a podcast. This coach dismissed 2 former staff members for their damaging treatment of student athletes only to face retaliation. She reported these issues to Mr. Aaron Cookson and Mr. Chuck Jacob, but nothing meaningful was done. She even raised concerns that these dismissed coaches were still using software containing student data, a significant risk to student safety, but her concerns were dismissed, and Mr. Jaco acted as though she was crazy. The other, a student who was forced to sit alone in a room with 3 men in power at BHS, and she was not protected, but expected to insulate herself from her abuser. What's clear is a troubling pattern. Women and children who present inconvenient truths to men in power are mistreated, ignored, and accused of being crazy. This coach and students' experience are just one of many, and it points to a systemic failure in how this administration protects its employees and students. I urge this board to recognize this pattern, take accountability, and act to ensure these failures stop here. Come to think of it, that coach filed a police report in 2022, the same year Witness 4's police report magically disappeared. That's a strange coincidence, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Zilka. I have Susan Nahas next.
Hello, my name is Susan Nahas, and I am a parent of 3 children that attend Perrysburg schools. My address is 26209 Seminary Road. I want to start with saying that I have spent nearly 30 years working in a school system, different districts other than Perrysburg. I love Perrysburg schools, and I'm so grateful that my 3 boys were able to grow up and to be a part of a good education, amazing teachers who have given them so much to create a fully rounded life. We chose Perrysburg schools when we moved to this district, or moved to this area 24 years ago. And I have been very proud of Perrysburg schools. However, in the recent years, I am becoming wary. I believe when it comes to people that we should always do the right thing. When it comes to children, it should be the driving force of our intentions and actions. I believe that you as leaders of Perrysburg schools are here to do a job, and that is to preserve and protect Perrysburg schools, to protect our students, to ensure great learning, and to encourage them to live their best lives and become the adults that they are meant to be, and to become great citizens. We as parents have given you our children with the faith that you will do just that. Whether it's the last failed 3 levies or your plans of what you're cutting for next year that is going to affect our students negatively, or keeping children safe from a powerful adult who abuses their power and takes advantage of minor children, it is your job to do the right thing. I would just like to encourage you to think about this thing. Be creative with your choices for next year, with your cuts, that you're not affecting students negatively. That you are thinking about other creative ways. At the last board meeting, there was a member of the community that came up and gave ideas about how Perrysburg could use their money and felt like it was safe to not have to do the cuts. I encourage you to reach out. Let's look for another idea. Maybe there's a pay freeze or something that happens that stinks as an employee. I've been in that position for 3 years in TPS. That happened a few years ago, but it's effective. Maybe we cut transportation for high school students. We're a very helpful community. We will get our kids to school. Maybe we trim some of the fat at the top and keep what is important to students and their activities, their clubs, and their valued teachers. Our lunch ladies, our custodians who don't even cost that much in our district that impact our children positively. I also encourage you to think about a statement that I heard at a leadership conference in Atlanta several years ago. If you can't inspire, retire. I took that very personally, and if I can't inspire my students and help to keep them safe, then maybe that's what needs to happen in this district. We need to clean it up, we need to move forward, we need to protect our schools, and especially our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. And I'd like to invite up Veronica Falter. Veronica Falter.
Hi, my name is Veronica Falter. I'm a resident here from Perrysburg. I live at 1993 Lexington Drive. First and foremost, I'd like to ask that the board change the time of the school board meetings to 6 or 6:30, as City Council does, as your own school tours are scheduled for, so parents can actually attend. Many parents are just getting home from work at 5:30 or 5:45, and may be why attending a school board meeting makes it difficult. I understand one of your own members, Laura Minke, has requested to change it to at least 6 because of her own work schedule, but the board's compromise was 5:45. That's unacceptable. Secondly, the Bible, God's word, tells us in Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority and become great, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, people groan and sigh. We have just come out from under 4 years of wicked rule, from the highest positions of this country down to the very fabric of our nation, our families. And to that I say, praise the Lord. That groaning and sighing, however, is being heard from our own community, and it is very troubling. Very troubling. It is said, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. But the last door any parent ever wants to worry about is the school doors. Because of your lack of rule of law, you have failed our kids. Our community and your school levies have failed 3 times, and for good reason. Poor stewardship and of our tax dollars. But I tell you this, it's one thing to mess with our tax dollars, but when you mess with our kids, the gloves are off. My own daughter did not alert me to Mr. Henline. I will mention his name. Advances until now. By the grace of God, she was able to see through his sick tricks to lure her into his office, which she did. But she left the door open, hoping that if she screamed, somebody would hear her. By the very definition of pedophile, this man is a pedophile because he has advanced on young women under 18, and he should be registered as a sex offender. It makes me angry, and it makes me sad that all the brave young ladies who did bravely step up forward to report him, only to be ignored by the principal Cookson and the board. I blame you too. And you're only covering for yourself. Do I want the best for Perrysburg students? Absolutely. I have 3 grown children who graduated from here and who have wonderful memories. But that went behind on closed doors, and she was embarrassed to say anything. Embarrassed. But presently, not at the hands of what has been shown through the board that has allowed this disgraceful behavior to go on, and pushes DEI that encourages the lie of the use of pronouns that does nothing but confuse our children and diminishes them down to items and destroys their spirit. Please. No, I'm going on. Our children are beautiful and fearfully and wonderfully made, as it says in Psalm 135.
Ms.
It
Walter,
proclaims they
your
are
time.
and has many, and as these young ladies have shown their beauty today. Cutting sports and the extracurricular activities are simply old tricks used by school boards when I was in school.
Okay, Mrs.
Just
Walter,
to get, I'm not going to finish. This is my right.
Fair.
This is my right. I am going to finish.
You told me she had
And
one line
cutting
or a
down
couple lines
this
ago.
time will not. In my own humble opinion, if these things are not fixed, you can kiss this levy goodbye too.
Thank you. Susan Rowland Miller. I'm Susan Rowland Miller. You're welcome. Just trying to be fair to everybody. That is the end of our public comment time. I first want to thank those who spoke, a variety of issues. I think it always takes a great deal of courage and bravery to stand up and to speak about things that are important to us and that we're passionate about and that matter to us. I want to read a statement that we knew would be important to some of those who gathered here tonight. It was collaboratively written, but at the end of the day, these are words that I want to share with you that I think will address some of what was raised this evening. This will not address everything that was raised. We've been taking notes. Obviously, any allegations of incidences we would want to follow up with, and I'll share some information about that. As the board's president, I do want to extend my deepest apologies to anyone who has been made to feel uncomfortable, placed in a vulnerable position, or has been the victim of inappropriate behavior within our schools. Our schools must be, as many of you have said tonight, be a place where children feel safe and supported and respected. And it must be where every student is able to thrive. Hearing claims that we may have fallen short of this standard has been and is deeply concerning to the board. I cannot emphasize this enough. We want to know about any situation in which any student or staff member was subject to inappropriate or abusive behavior, or witnessed someone being subjected to this kind of behavior. To act, the school district first needs the information. And we know if information is shared and then not acted on, it harms those who we are charged to look out for, and we know that is unacceptable. But we first have to know about it. To encourage reporting, Superintendent Hostler has established 2 ways to report information. The first is an email address, report@perrysburgschools.net. report@perrysburgschools.net. This email address is a dedicated address which can be used by anyone to share concerns or information. The second is a dedicated voicemail extension. Anyone can call 419-874-9131, the district number, or any school district phone number that you have, and then enter extension 2800 to leave a voicemail with concerns or information. The email address and voicemail extensions are operational now, and this information, if you didn't remember it, is listed at the bottom of the front page of the school district's website. Any emails and voicemails will automatically be forwarded to me as board president, to our Director of Student Services and Wellbeing, and to the Executive Director of Human Resources. Sending each email or voicemail to all 3 positions ensures that all reports are received and documented and promptly followed up on. Additionally, as we have shared before, the Safer Ohio School Tip Line, and that number is 844-723-3764, again on the bottom of the district's webpage, remains available for any anonymous reports. And individuals may, of course, continue to contact Perrysburg City or township police departments or school district offices directly. As an example, last night, Superintendent Hostler became aware of the podcast that was mentioned earlier, in which a former student alleged inappropriate contact with Mr. Henline during a classroom activity in 2010. Early this morning, Mr. Hostler promptly shared these details, including a link to the podcast with Perrysburg Police Chief Jones. Our immediate challenge is to look back at claims of past incidences and determine what actions can be taken today. At the same time, we also know we must move forward by demonstrating our unwavering commitment, which this board has, to procedures and actions that lead to better outcomes. As evidenced by the school district's willingness to pursue an allegation from nearly 25 years ago, it is clear that a proactive and thorough approach can yield some meaningful results. In the coming months, the school district will be taking steps to review and strengthen our procedures and practices. And in partnership with the Scott Skirvin Law Firm, we are also planning mandatory training for all school district administrators and staff members, beginning with the high school staff. Topics will include Title IX compliant procedures, mandatory reporting requirements, and identifying behaviors that may be perceived as grooming. This training will also better equip staff members to comply with relevant laws and procedures and policies. I want to review and be absolutely clear with everyone on what has brought us to this point this day. The investigation Mr. Hostler ordered at Perrysburg High School about teacher John Henline was focused on the reported allegations involving Mr. Henline and his actions. And I think it's worth emphasizing a few key elements of that investigation. When allegations were formally made, our administrative team responded quickly and then informed the board. The investigation included following all school district policies and procedures in conducting both our own internal investigations and then in retaining outside counsel to investigate. The investigation also involved informing and conferring with local law enforcement, Wood County Child Protective Services, and the Wood County prosecutor, and a report was made to the State Board of Education. During this and any investigation, the concerns of the students were always placed first, while maintaining the fairness of the investigation, which followed the facts. This balancing included placing Mr. Henline on administrative leave to remove him from contact with our students, and informing Mr. Henline that we would take steps towards his termination if he didn't resign. Ultimately, we accepted Mr. Henline's resignation, which is effective in 3 weeks, and he will remain out of school until that date. The investigation findings also raised questions about whether Principal Aaron Cookson's actions met the school district's expectations for handling sensitive allegations. We are right now actively reviewing this matter in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and board policy, which both outline the processes for addressing performance issues with public employees. The board is committed to resolving this matter appropriately and transparently. Just want to be clear again. There is no place in Perrysburg schools for anyone who would harm our students. The board is committed to taking action to rebuild trust. We have asked the superintendent to provide additional recommendations on how the school district can be more transparent in handling allegations against staff members. I want to emphasize by repeating that what we want to encourage is that anyone with additional information to come forward and to make a report. The new reporting tools are part of our ongoing effort to ensure that concerns are heard and addressed promptly. Your input, everyone's input, is vital as we work to create a safer and more supportive environment for everyone, but especially our students. Our mission is to ensure that all students achieve their greatest potential. Our core values, we know, include providing a thriving and safe environment for everyone. We know we must live out this mission and these values in everything we think, say, or do. I thank you for your attention, again, for those who spoke. I especially thank you for your words this evening, and I thank you all for your commitment to your schools to be here tonight. That we can address that after the meeting, but we're going to continue on with our meeting. And I think that was addressed in the investigation report. And I'm not able to address that right now, and we can address that later. Another time. So I'm going to continue on with our wording. I appreciate the comments that were made by the public, but at this time, this isn't an open forum. We're actually going to be talking about the opportunities for open forum discussion next in our agenda. And that is the time. I always invite people, though, and I don't think enough people take advantage of this. If you have specific questions like this, Mr. Hostler and Mr. Drewer, if they're financial, are always available to take your calls and to answer your questions. This time I'd like to move into our time for the rest of the board meeting into item number 6. About community engagement. There are multiple ways that we are working to provide better community engagement. We've been discussing over the last several months, we're working to figure out 3 ways, mainly 3 ways, and this is what we talked about at our last committee meeting. We want to set up opportunities to listen and hear concerns and hopes in members of our school communities. We heard some of those this evening. We want to be able to share information in appropriate forums about the district and our finances. And we also want to find ways to continue to be collaborative with the community. And so the first of these opportunities will be kind of a combination of listening and informing through what we are calling our community dialogue sessions. And I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hassler to share a little bit more about these.
Thank you. So with the community engagement, we've circulated this and have information available, and it begins actually on the 23rd this week. So we've shared it with the Messenger Journal and published it in other publications. And what we're trying to do is provide an opportunity to engage with staff and learn a little bit about different areas of the district, and at the same time give opportunities for folks to drop in and ask questions in different settings. So on the screen you can see that we begin on Thursday, the 23rd at Wade Library, and as fate would have it, we're talking about winter weather in our schools, so pretty topical. And we will have folks who deal with the weather, transportation director, operations director, to talk about that. So it is a topic that people want to know more about. And after a small presentation about what that looks like from the inside, how the roads get checked, and what is the threshold for temperatures to cancel school. We'll have an opportunity to answer any questions about those kinds of things or anything else. On Monday, February 23rd, we're doing an evening to allow for folks who maybe can't get there during the day. And these are drop-ins, so we'll be in that location. Board members will be there as well. And at all of these events. And you can kind of see the different topics, and we're alternating between a topic, and then the next month we follow up with a drop-in opportunity. So we kind of move the start time so that we can reach people that work different hours or have different commitments. So that is something that we're continuing to do. I know in the last year we had over 80 community engagement opportunities for the public. And this year we wanted to really begin with, continuing that and trying to find different ways to reach staff, not only our staff internally, but also with our families and community members. So that is something that we're ready to kick off later this week. So we're excited about that. So it looks like the weather will cooperate for our discussion about the winter weather. So that's a good thing.
Highlight, and I'll be reaching out to the rest of the board, that there will be one of the ways that, besides the presentation that's done, but especially during the open forum, but before and after for about a half an hour, that board members would be available at those times. So I'll be reaching out to make sure that we kind of have everything covered. I know that some of them are during the day, so some of you might not be available, and some of us are, and some of us might be out of town other times, so I'll be reaching out about that.
So that'll be great. It is a district dialogue, so it includes board members, to your point. It includes different staff members who talk about what they do, and we've kind of aligned it when those things are beginning to happen, as well as the community. So that's something that is important. So we're looking forward to this type of opportunity for engagement. It's something we haven't done before, so it is something that I think we're anxious to see the response from the community on that.
And Mr. Hassel, if you'll continue on and talk a little bit about the process and some of the meetings around the elementary boundary discussion.
Right, so we communicated with the community about the process of, and through the board presentations that we've made about looking at the district elementary school boundaries and kind of realigning them and changing them. So if folks haven't really heard about that, there's opportunities to look at previous board meetings where we've spent some time and done really a deep dive into that. So this evening, part of that community engagement is we have selected a couple of dates. Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. at the junior high. We'll be meeting in the auditorium there. Also Monday, February 10th at the Counter Building at 7 p.m. We will be posting the presentation on YouTube during that process, so people that can't make either one of those will have the opportunity to observe. And then we will be gearing up for a presentation to the Board of Education on Tuesday, February 18th, so that's next month's regular meeting. And so the purpose of this is to share with the community some options that are being generated in terms of what those boundaries could look like. And then to collect feedback on those boundaries and what they like, what they don't like, what did we miss. So that's something that we're hoping to gain during this engagement period, make adjustments if needed, and then when we come to the Board of Education, we'll show those options. We'll discuss the feedback that we received and certainly make a recommendation based on all of those factors to the board. And at that time, the board will certainly make a decision as to whether to proceed or not. I think it's important to remember, why we're here, and it's trying to, obviously with the levy defeat, we're looking at what can we do to find those funds to continue to operate. With the levy loss, we're reverting back to a budget where we had 330 fewer students than we do today, 35 less teachers than we have today. So we're in the process of adjusting our operations to do that. And the team has been charged to find every place that we can locate dollars to offset cuts to the classroom or activities. So one of the suggestions was, we've been redistricting every time a new subdivision comes online. So that's why the front of the subdivision, when the first plat goes in, it goes to this elementary. When the next one goes in, it goes to another elementary. That is a form of redistricting. And we've been going about it that way with the idea that we would be eventually opening up a new elementary school and then do that total redistricting when that school comes online. We had a community group that studied this issue for several months, nearly a year, came and made a recommendation to the board, presented those options to the community, and it wasn't the right proposal for the community. So with that and the operational funds, where we're not in a position to operate the buildings that we have today as we are operating them, the reality is that we are not going to be opening a new building in the near future. So the discussion of, let's look at the savings that this can result in, because it's something that we need to do on a wholesale level. So with that, we can find better balancing of students between buildings. That right now we have some inefficiencies because one grade level at one building might have 6 sections, and another building in that same grade level may have just three sections. So balancing makes important. Delaying the need to purchase additional portables in certain buildings, pushing that out is a savings to the district. And then the efficiencies of trying to take entire neighborhoods and have them go to one school versus kind of what we do now. And in the next slide, this gives you an idea of the student enrollment that we have and the building capacity, and you can see that we're over in several of those because of trailers that we utilize. So, configuring the boundaries will help reduce some of those very large buildings. Even though when you add trailers, you're not adding space to the cafeteria. You're not adding space to those areas where the students travel every day and restrooms. And so this would allow us to provide space to those students and staff members. In the next slide, this is our current route, and I shared that when a new plat or subdivision goes in and a new plat comes in and then the second plat, we look to see where we have space in our existing elementaries. And these are actual bus stops, color-coded by the schools that those routes are connected to. And we wanted to zoom in on that so you can kind of see how that works. And in the next slide, you can begin to see, when that subdivision goes in, we don't have room at the neighboring school, so we're going to send those students to the school where there is room, and that's where you get to see the multiple colors on the same street. And again, we began to do that because our goal was to, have a new building and take those steps to redistrict all at once when we're opening a new building. So I think that we've done already some work on this in terms of surveying families, so I wanted to move very quickly through this section. And the first question that we have is, we had about 678 respondents, so that's a pretty good number. Where were those respondents coming from? The next slide, the grade level, so you can see the number. And we started with preschool and we went up to 3rd grade because those are the grades that are rolling up. So if you have a student that's in 4th grade, you might not have received the survey because your student is moving on. Asking questions, how far away? And you can see that the greatest number of recipients or participants in the survey said more than 2 miles. So the idea of neighborhood schools is something that, we're really not there right now because of the things that I described. School bus remains the most popular form of transportation for elementary riders. If you drive through town or you go past the school during those hours, you wouldn't believe that. But that is, we have a number of buses and a number of riders with that. This is the part that was really important to us as we began this process, is finding out these questions. What are your primary concerns regarding the redistricting? Disruption of social and peer networks was the parents' #1 concern. So that's something that we kind of put on the bulletin board as we had conversations about how do we shape this and how do we go about this. Loss of connection to the current school community. Possible longer commute for times for students. And then we have collected other comments. The next important question that if they were assigned to a different school, what is it that you need? So that idea of how can we continue to support those students and those families and the staff members, because this will impact staff members as they move. This was something that was very important to us as we plan, the elementary principals and the administration is looking at, once if the board says this is the direction we're heading in, we need to immediately begin to plan and to do these activities to help with that transition. As we move into what are the factors that are important in determining the boundaries, minimizing disruptions for students already enrolled in school. So we understand that that's hard for students to change and hard for families to change. Proximity to home is #2, being closer. When we have school children that are on buses today and they drive past 2 elementaries on their way to their elementary, that is something that we're hearing from parents saying that is important to be closer to our homes, keeping neighborhoods together. And you saw that crazy, blow up of, or zoom in on what we're doing today where kids are literally on the same street and not in the same school. And you see that is something that we're doing this. So, and then balancing enrollment across the schools. So this has been kind of a guiding principle for us as we've begun to look at options and solutions and putting information in. And of course, how would you prefer to stay informed, engaging the community? How do you want to know? Email updates, social media, the website are all important ways to communicate these. So, beginning in February, when we begin to roll out these options and discussing these things, we'll keep in mind that these are the ways that parents are telling us that they want to hear about things. So that's something that's important to us. So we'll continue to do the work on that. The one thing is we received a number of questions about specific neighborhoods, and the emails began with, well, the original plan that you showed had this neighborhood shifting, and we just showed a slide that just highlighted what it could look like, not that we were actually redistricted, that was the plan. But we were able to just kind of capture what it looks like when everyone in this area goes to this elementary, everyone in this area goes to another elementary. So that was very important to us to clarify. And I know we said that throughout the presentation, but we had people zooming in on that. And I guess hindsight being what it is, we probably maybe would have shown another district that has redistricted and had boundaries like the way that we would like them, instead of just dropping in stuff randomly. But our plan moving forward, I think we've got a great team that's working very hard to do that. The technology to do this has really come a long way, which allows us to really generate lots of different options and look at the input. But from enrollment and looking at the numbers of students, looking at subdivisions and working with the city, which has been very helpful in terms of where are those next developments coming. And we've factored in all of those kinds of things as we've looked at formulating a plan. So we're getting very close to be able to share that out to the public and gather that feedback. And then it'll be up to the board to decide if this is something that it needs to do or wants to do. And we'll be working to make sure, if the decision is to move forward, that we're going to do it and make sure we're paying attention to feedback we got from parents saying we need to keep these things in mind if we do have to make changes. So those are the community engagement pieces with those two important topics.
Thank you, Mr. Hausler. Any questions for those two? We did have the inaugural meeting with Ms. Menke and myself and Mr. Hausler, Mr. Abke, and Ms. Zicker for the community engagement. We're also continuing to work on future opportunities. We're trying to identify key community groups and also the best format and ways and dates to weave into these other engagement opportunities to really start to open up the conversation about what's next for our district. We have a lot of choices to make about priorities and funding in the future, so how we want to make sure that we're getting with the community. So our next meeting will continue that as we try to determine the best format for those gatherings. I'm really excited to be able to offer at this point some opportunities for both open and also focused discussion and collaboration. I feel like just today I got an email from someone in the community who again raised the have you thought about this? And the answer for every single question was yes. And I think we need to find ways to share the planning, the work that we're doing to look into the future and to engage the community more in that. I don't know, Ms. Menke, if you had anything to share, you can pass this. Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on, so we are on number 7, so Finance and Treasurer's Report. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Drewer for the Finance Report.
And Brooke, can you go in slideshow mode? All right. All right, it's at your favorite time of the board meeting. It's my favorite, but it's kind of, we're in the middle of the year, right? Something I said. Yeah. That's all right. That's okay. So let me give you an update of where we are year to date. You see this chart every month. It shows our cash balance, relative. We're in that same, no surprises there. It's the same cycle that we've always seen. But I want to break this down a little bit more for you because the cash balance sometimes confusing. You look at our cash balance in August and you go, oh my gosh, you can handle a lot of things. But so let me. I need slideshow mode, Brooke. It's just not all my special effects go away. Just let me use my clicker. Okay, well, maybe, I could word PDF, not the,
Yes. For YouTube. Yes.
okay. All right, so, sorry about this, I had some nice little animations here that make this less confusing. The green line on this chart is the cash balance fiscal year 24, right? The light green. The red line is our revenue cash flow, right? So if you look at the revenue, you can see August and March, February, March, that's where we get our tax settlements. And then the dark green is our expenses. So that's why that cash balance is so important, right? Because if you look at most of those months, our expenses outweigh our revenue. And if you look at this year, it's the same. Nothing surprising here, right? So that's when I talk about wanting to end the school year, the fiscal year, at least 60 days true cash, because I know that's what the revenue cycle is going to look versus the expense cycle. And I thought maybe it'd be a little more clear that difference between expenses and revenue. Does that make sense? Is that a helpful image for you? And just so you have the scale, on the left-hand side is the cash balance, on the right-hand side is the revenue and expenses. So those scales are, just want to make sure they're clear. But, the thing to note is like in December, look at the difference in revenue and expenses, much like December, right? So that's why we have to have that significant cash balance at the beginning of the fiscal year. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to move on. So where are we? We are, halfway through the year. We're at 133 true cash days. Our revenue's running almost 11% ahead of last year, and expenses are 8.7% ahead of last year. Not really anything exciting since last month. We're tracking just as expected. I just want to hit a couple things. Unrestricted state aid, we're down year over year, but that was expected. We are getting the benefit of the all-day kindergarten, getting funding for that, but because the base costs were not updated, we're essentially flat funded, and that negative 3% will drop a little bit as the year goes on, but it's we're going to end up pretty close to flat year over year on state aid. On the expense side, salaries and benefits we know are the biggest portion of our expenses. We're on trend, and we're actually a little bit ahead of where we're 50% through the year, and we're less than 50% expenditures. That's kind of normal because in December our new health insurance rates go into effect, and also it doesn't show up here. It's hard to see in these larger numbers, but the positions have not been filled. That's it shows up here. It's just that it's at a decimal point that's farther down. But custodial positions we're not able to fill, and a couple other positions we've not filled are having a benefit here, and it should help us come in ahead over expectations. And purchase services supplies, we had some big spending at the beginning of the year. They're back on trend. Obviously, they're high year over year. I want to point out supplies. You see that huge percentage year over year. But remember, last year we came way under budget on supplies, and it kind of caught up with us. And the other thing is, both purchase services and supplies reflect some increased maintenance needs. Right? A lot of our maintenance needs are handled in permanent improvement, but not all of them. So sometimes contractors are purchase services and supplies that fix equipment, buses, those kinds of things. So nothing really new month over month, but just we're on track. Obviously, the next big challenge is the budget, right? We're set for this year, but what's going to happen going into next year? Any questions on that before I move on? Kind of going to move. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about tax rates. Later here in the agenda, you're going to approve, accept the tax rates of the county auditor. So I thought I'd give you a quick peek behind the curtain. I did this 2 years ago when the reappraisal was happening, and I think it's probably a good idea to try to do this every year to give you an idea of where these numbers come from. So this was meant to come in one at a time. So it looks like good. So if you look on the left-hand side, those are last year's. When I say last year, last tax year's valuations, right? So you can see Class 1, which is residential and agriculture, Class 2, commercial and industrial, and public utility is a combination of public real utility and tangible personal property. as you know, class 1, that's where we're heavily weighted, right? That's where we've been. This year, our increase total valuation is $18 million. It sounds like a lot, and it is. It's 1.3%. Most of that, 12 million of that's in class 1. And then a little bit class 2, and a little bit in public, surprised me. And as I'll show you in a minute, there is some revenue increase from this because we're at the 2004. Public utilities, I'm sorry. But what I don't have right now is a tax duplicate to show the split between the 18 million, where's it coming from. But I can deduce by looking at the effective tax rates that it's coming mostly from new construction. And that's important, and I'll show you here in a minute why that's important versus valuation increase. So some of you have seen this before. I guess 3 new board members may not have seen this before. This is a format I used a couple of years ago. These are all of our levies. I've combined our voted current expense levies into one line. And so the blue box are those levies that are inside millage. And as you know, through state charter, every county has 10 mills to distribute. And most school districts get somewhere between 4 and 5 mills. Our total allocation is 4.8. And the board has allocated that 4.3 to general fund and a $0.5 million for permanent improvement for our technology. And I'm going to come back to the general fund part of it, but the PI levy part of that $0.5 million, because it's inside millage, doesn't change. So as valuations go up, we do collect more revenue for a technology fund, okay? And technically, on the inside mills and general fund, we also collect more because that 4.3 doesn't change. But you see it's tempered here by a minute by 2004. The red areas are voted fixed rate millage. And I want to remind you, so fixed rate millage is you've passed a levy at a certain millage rate. And the nice thing about fixed rate millage is it's subject to House Bill 920, so it can't increase because of valuation increases, but it can increase because of new construction. And that's why this is important, that fixed rate. So if you look at our permanent improvement levy that we want to talk about renewing, you'll notice that the effective rate year to year did not change. Well, how can that be? Because the valuations went up. Well, it did change, but it's out several decimal places. I rounded up to a second, but it did go down a little bit, but not enough for most people are going to see it. But the point is, we will get a little bit more money on that levy because of new construction. We don't get any new revenue based on, to say, inflationary increases. The other thing to point out here is that inside millage for the general fund and the current expense, those two added together are 2004. That's where we get. So we do get new revenue because we're at the 2004 right now. Now, the General Assembly, maybe messing with that, but that's where we are today. And many districts now have worked themselves down to 2004. And one of the benefits of having a fixed sum levy is it doesn't impact the floor, but that could change also. So you'll notice there, year to year, even though valuations went up, the effective millage rate doesn't change. So we're going to get a little bit more revenue as a result of that. The last one I want to talk about is, there's 2 more. Fixed sum levies, we've got a continuing one, and the one that fell off as a result of not being replaced last fall. Remember, and that is purely, no matter what happens, we're going to collect $13 million. So if valuations go up, effective rate drops. If valuations dropped, the effective rate will increase to keep that $13 million collection. So it will never collect more than $13 million. And here you can see the impact, though, year to year. Look at the fixed sum continuing. Last year, effective rate was 9.4. It's down 9.28. And so, in this case, homeowners would see about a $325,000 home, about a $14 annual impact of that. So that 0.12 mil drop in effective rate is a combination of new construction and valuation increases, increasing the overall value. And we would have expected that same thing to happen with the other levy. And finally, bond issues. As you know, bond issues are an unlimited tax. which means the county will collect whatever is needed to be able to pay the principal and interest on the bond. And if you look at the first line, that's the high school bond issue. We're in our last year. It'll be paid off at the end of this year. So this is the last tax year we collected. The effective rate dropped from 1.85 to 1.7. But you notice the other bond issue, that's for HBI, it's gone up 0.07 mils. And that is, what we do is we work with the county auditor, he looks at what our upcoming payments are, and then looks at our reserve. And our reserve is getting a little bit tight, so we we took that up just a little bit to make sure we have enough reserve. And the reason you want a reserve is so, it's just like in case there's a big fluctuation in valuation, particularly if it dropped, you don't have to increase your effective millage as much. So in the end, year over year, on $325,000, well, every home class 1, the effective millage dropped from 44 mils to 34. And of course, the bulk of that being the levy that fell off. And you can see that without discounts, this is just raw numbers, you see the average in median homes is about $1,200 savings year over year. So I'll stop there, see if there's any questions, feedback. This is helpful. I know it's a lot of numbers.
Any questions? Can pass the mic. No?
Okay. So later in my section here, you'll be approving accepting the rates from the county auditor, and those rates are reflected there. So I think I can end my comments right there.
You had under discussion items, cash policies and post-audit conference. Did you want to say anything about those?
I'll give that to Finance Committee if they want to talk.
Well, we're doing a second reading of the cash policies. Talked about, given the financial situation of the district, are those policies still necessary? What is the goal of those policies? The goals are essentially if cash hits a certain level, a certain minimum of days outstanding, that the district, the administration would need to present a plan to the board. Well, we're probably going to hit that this is what we're doing. I mean, we are talking about what a plan is going to be. So it's kind of like the policy, it's equal parts moot, but it's also in play right now too. The other thing we talked about related to the policy was, I don't think it's ever any good to hold on to too much cash either. So should there be an upper end of that? Do you say 100 days or a year's worth of days outstanding cash, where you'd start to say, well, what's the plan there? I think in that discussion it became apparent that type of mindset isn't going to be an issue for this district for quite some time. So it's something to be mindful of, something for future boards to be mindful of, but probably nothing that this board or near-term boards are going to have to deal with. So I think a long-winded way of me saying that the Finance Committee is kind of recommending going ahead and approving the second reading of those cash policies we presented last time. And then I think the post-audit conference is pretty straightforward. Randy, don't let me get ahead of my skis here, but the audit has been completed. We're going to hear tomorrow that there were not any findings of significance or any findings at all, maybe.
No findings at all.
Thank you. No findings at all. So, but we want to hold that meeting anyway, just to trust and verify what Randy's telling us. So that meeting is tomorrow.
Yeah.
We kept that just to the Finance Committee.
And I'll be
I sent you a link, all of you a link to that conference if you want to attend. You're all welcome to attend. It's not subject to open meetings law. The auditor is going to share the audit with whoever can attend. The audit is clean. I don't think you're going to hear anything, but it's a chance that the board members want to ask the auditors questions. It's a good time to do it.
And again, it's not open according to Ohio law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to repeat that, by state law, the audit review is not an open meeting, but you are welcome to tune in and listen to that meeting.
But at some point, the audit will also be posted to the auditor's website for the public.
And then it will become public after that meeting. Okay. All right. Anything additional in 7.2 that you wanted to highlight, Mr. Drewer?
No, I mean, again, thank you for your attention. You know, I try to take some of the questions that I get asked and try to build in my presentation. But I encourage anyone, if there's things that you want us to discuss or bring up, I'm trying to anticipate what I think you need to hear. But that's, you know, that's from my perspective. It may not be from, you know, I need to hear from you if there's something else you want to talk about and make sure we discuss here. And, you know, Finance Committee will talk some things there the same way. But again, what do you want presented publicly that would help you and help communicate to the community what's going on?
I think those slides on the changes that we will be seeing on our tax bill were really helpful. They're ones, I know you've presented those in the past, and they're ones that I return to, so I'll be printing those out and putting them in my binder.
And for example, in another life, I actually have pulled up tax bills at board meetings to show people how to read them. Because that's one of the things, you know, many people, their taxes go through escrow. They probably don't even see their bill. It goes to their lending institution. They get a notification it's been paid, but they don't actually see it. So.
Okay. I'm gonna go through 7, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. Is that okay? So 7.3 are the rates that Mr. Drewer referenced in his presentation about the tax rates with the county auditor. And so that takes us to 7.4, a motion to approve agenda items 7.2, the financial, and 7.3, the rates. So moved, Mrs. Larimer. Second, Ms. Menke. Roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Ms. Menke.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. We'll take a 5-minute break. Right now it is 7:09, so at 7:15 we will be back at the meeting. Trust Mr. Hostler will magically appear like Ms. Menke did early in the meeting. We're going to move into item number 8. Here in 8.1 and 8.2 we have the 2 different resolutions that we've discussed regarding the permanent improvement renewal, and this will be the motion that we will need in order to place it on the May 6th ballot. The first one is the renewal, which I'm just going to generate $1,798,000 and would cost a property owner $41 per 100,000, and that is the 1.9 mil that we currently have that is now at 1.19, I think. And the second is renewal with increase to generate $2,276,000 and cost a property owner $53 per 100,000. So to begin discussion, I would ask that there be a motion to pass one of these resolutions. It will require a second, and then we can discuss it.
So I'm going to motion that we proceed with resolution 8.1, the permanent improvement renewal at 1.9 mils.
Okay, Mr. Bennington's moved 8.1 with the renewal. I have Ms. Larimer as the second. Beat Ms. Menke. All right, can we have a discussion? I'll turn it to Mr. Bennington to discuss since he made the motion.
No, thank you. I'm just going to reiterate what I said 2 or 3 weeks ago at that special meeting, that I think simpler is better. I think that there's no doubt that we need, we've got to be able to replace windows and do the capital X, the Cap X projects that this district will continue to have. I think for purposes of messaging, and this will come up in kind of the next session, or the next section, but hearing the comments that we heard today too, I'm certainly concerned about our ability to pass any levy right now, so I'm trying to keep it minimal. I'm trying to just renew what's already on the books, hope that that's support for that is out there. So that's it.
Anyone else want to comment on this?
Well, yeah, just briefly, I just think that we have the situation where we are operating this, and I don't remember who I wrote this to, but we're trying to operate, when was this first passed, 1980? Okay, so we're trying to run all of our buildings which are now 40 years older than 1980. And it's such an arduous task to ask of Mr. Mapus in the operations department, oh yeah, you can go ahead and run your department on a 1980 budget. So even though I seconded the motion, I find it somewhat irresponsible to our buildings and our grounds and the maintenance of our district to not go for a more logical, updated budget. But I just don't think it's there right now. And this is where I get confused, because we're asked to have a plan, we're asked to think of the future. And when we've been doing that, we've been denied. So I'm going to carpe diem the 1980s. It was a good decade, right, Tom? He has all the records to prove it. And I mean albums, not paper. So I am really mixed on this. We desperately need the renewal plus, but I agree, I don't think the community will accept it.
I agree. Sitting in operations committee, I do know that we need an increase, but right now I do not think it's the time to ask for it. Roofing alone eats up the majority of the budget, and that doesn't even allow for excuse me, anything else that we have coming down the pike with just regular maintenance and replacement of things, whether it's HVAC systems or any plumbing issues that we have, especially in older buildings like Frank. But right now, it's just not the time.
Everybody else is said. And I think, again, back to the community engagement, that one of the things we want to be able to engage with the community is that question is, what is a reasonable but a good stewarding of these buildings that, my children went through, people's children now, and we want another generation to be able to go through these buildings. So what is good stewardship of that? And that's something we want to talk about with the community. But I support the idea of asking for the renewal at this point, and then through conversations with the community and within the board and looking at the future, determine what else we might need in the future. Is there any other discussion on 8.1? Roll call, Mr. Giroux, please.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Ms. Minke.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. So the resolution to proceed is passed, and that will be on the May 6th ballot. Item number 9, resolution of necessity. This is, again, the first step required to ask an auditor to generate the calculations to provide the resolution to proceed. This is about the operating levy for $13.5 million, and we asked Mr. Drewer to generate both 4-year and 5-year options. Just like the permanent improvement renewal, I'll ask that there be a motion to pass one of these resolutions, and then it will require a second in order to be discussed.
So move on 9.1.
Ms. Mackey moves 9.1. Is there a second?
I'll give it a second for purposes of discussion.
Okay, so second, Mr. Bennington. We'll let, as the mover, I'm going to let Ms. Mackey speak to it first.
I know there are some difficult topics brought up tonight, but I think it is important that we proceed with where we left off when it comes to levies. and making sure that we have our feet underneath us with our funding. I think waiting until November is very risky. We don't know what the next 10 months are going to bring. We have a new president in. We don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. We don't know what's going to happen with the cost of living. Let our public decide whether or not they want to support us right now with establishing the funding where it was at.
Thanks, Ms. Menke. I respect and accept all of those comments you just had there. I respect the vigor to want to get it out there and to get the financial stability, a little bit more certainty out there. What concerns me, what continues to concern me is what it said last week about the need for more community engagement. Tonight kind of reinforced that to me. The need to get the ask right as part of that community engagement. The concern, and I heard it several times tonight, it is certainly wears heavily 3 levy losses. I don't like the idea of the potential 4th levy loss going into what would then truly be our last chance to do this before in November, before a lot more very significant cuts come. And I'm concerned about the status of the campaign committee, both in terms of financing and in terms of boots on the ground work. So with all of those concerns weighing me, as well as new information in the last week about what's going on in Columbus and very direct statements, what was before just kind of thoughts of statements are getting more direct about the state legislature's strong desire to significantly cut public school funding. So that takes me down a path of, $13.5 million isn't enough already, but it's a minimum that I feel we need to get. That number could end up being higher, depending on where the biennial budget ends up, and we're not going to know that till June. So I would love to move forward with this with you, but I have so many concerns that I'd rather get more information, get the ask right, and move this into November, because have no doubt, we need to do something. We need to do something in 2025, so.
So quick question to you, Eric. We've got an option for a 4-year or a 5-year. Do you have any thoughts one way or the other? That's why I didn't want this to come down, because I figured speaking of it's kind of connected. Just keep moving. Yeah.
Well, and I forget because my mind's muddled tonight, but whatever one gets it on a presidential or gubernatorial governor election would be that timing. So I think that would be the 5-year. If I was to go around, I'd go the 5-year, but just because it might make, this when it comes up in that next time period, makes that easier. But if this board said 4 because it's more winnable, I'd be okay with that too. Because again, we need money starting January 1, 2026. So I'm more focused on that than even how it looks 4 or 5 years out. Again, Ms. Lermer, as I said last week, my favorite levy will be the one that wins.
So the gubernatorial would be next year, right? Gubernatorial, Tom, you probably,
Yes.
he's nodding his head, yes, okay.
That's why the 5-year puts us.
So then the 5 years, what puts it on that cycle?
And Sue, I think that's a debate for whatever August, whatever that time frame is for putting it on the November ballot.
Well, I have to agree with you. I think that there's an awful lot that's going to be happening at the State House between now and then that could affect what we ask, what we need, and how we ask it. It's a mess down there, and we could, I think it's responsible and I know you wouldn't push it now, and I understand why, but I kind of think it's responsible. Let's not rush, let's wait and see what the state's going to do, or not do, as the case may be, so that we have a better ask formation. And Randy, you can nod or shake your head. I mean, does that not make sense to wait and see what the state is going to delve out to us by what, June 30th at midnight? Do we have to throw this back to you? Or just come on over and share the mic with Eric.
Well, Ms. Benke and Mr. Bennington hit both nails on the head, right? It's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. We know $13.5 million right now is the minimum ask, really, to stabilize us probably for the next 4 years, unless there's a big cut in state funding. Then that ask changes, right? So the question, really, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks to make the decision here. But the risk, you guys have hit it already. We wait till November, we have one shot at it, but that's a good turnout election. Or you got May with a very low turnout election. And will May election represent the views of the community, let alone be another run a campaign? So personally, I want it locked up if it's possible, but I want whatever's going to pass too. So I'm right there with your dilemma. So.
Nothing additional to what anybody else has already said.
You're not committed to it.
I'm just, I think, and I might have mentioned this last time, I went back through the notes I made after the November meeting and after some of the meetings of comments and hearing from the community, and I remain very committed to taking the time to really plan and to get the community engagement, to get a clear picture of what it is that we're going to need if the state is going to change how they're funding us. Even in the simplest way, we're going to lose $1 million of funding. So if there's additional changes, we again are looking at either additional cuts, and even with the $13.5 million, we'll be looking at cuts. So I'd rather make sure, people who know me know I do puzzles, and I often say I don't have all the puzzle pieces yet. And until I have all the puzzle pieces, I would be not, we can't always be sure, but I want to make sure that we're creating the best ask that is well thought out and that really is what we need, and not just what will make our blood pressure a little bit lower for the next 10 months. I think we owe it to the community to engage them in this conversation before we ask them. This will be a new tax, even though it's the old tax. So before we ask for new funds like this, I certainly want to engage them in that conversation. Are there additional comments? Anyone?
So if we, procedure questions, so if we vote this one down, then we'll have the same conversation about 9.2. If that one votes down, then it means that we're not looking at anything for May, and we'll rediscuss over the summer.
Right now the motion is 9.1. Someone, if this is defeated, then someone could make the motion for 9.2, and if it has a second, we'll go through the same process.
Gotcha, okay.
But if there's no motion or no second, we will move on to item 10.
Okay.
Are we ready for a vote?
Aye.
Roll call, please, Mr. Drewer.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
No.
Ms. Lara.
No.
Dr. Rapper.
No.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
No. Motion's defeated. Is there anyone that wanted to move 9.2? All All right, hearing no one, I'd like to move on to item 10, student achievement. Mr. Bennington.
So, Ms. Roland Miller, we'll see how well I do this since you've kept it over the last year. Student achievement is kind of the old teaching and learning or curriculum committee. We've aligned kind of the work and scope of it with more what our board responsibilities are. You know, we are tasked with student achievement, so that is a name change that is, you know, also in the spirit to keep us focused on the type of things that we should be discussing. But as we were working, Mr. Sarnes and Mr. Swartzmiller kind of through that, it was apparent there wasn't a whole lot of changes that we need from things that we've discussed in the past. So you know, we're still open-minded to what type of things should we be discussing in there, but after what was a pretty lengthy discussion, that we already are talking about the things that are related to student achievement. The minutes are in the board report. I'll be brief here given the hour and the other work we have tonight, but you know, we talked about the one plan and the multi-tiered systems of support and the district's focus on improving the performance of all of our students in those areas, specifically math and ELA, and then multi-tiered systems of support, which I don't think I'm going to even look at the administrators over there because I'll probably say something wrong and I don't want to get the stink eye, but you know, what are the levels, what are the various, and it's complex and it's a lot of different things that help contribute overall to our students' graduations and success in the school district. So again, looking at the type of mechanisms, including frequency and proper metrics, when we talk about those three goals of, again, ELA, math, and MTSS. Okay, was that close? Very good. We also talked about literacy development, talked about the continuum of skills from emergent literacy to early and conventional literacy for our elementary students, and most importantly, kind of helping with that information and understanding how we communicate to parents what their children's journey is on that literacy spectrum. So I've got an update on the science of reading mandate. 79% of our staff are complete in the training that's necessary for it. That comes with another cost. Call this one of our favorite unfunded mandates of $140,000. Got an update on the curricular review that is going on within the district right now. You know, a lot of work going on to make sure that we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Interesting item that's also on the windshield is course sequencing, particularly at the high school, kind of taking a look at what courses are being taken as, say, at the junior level that would be more appropriate at a freshman level. So that sounds like a mountain, and that's work that is just starting. Some changes to the OTES 2.0 that are upcoming, and then finally a little bit off the books, but we had an interesting conversation on AI guidelines and its use within the district. A lot more work to go there. So a lot of stuff to do. I think, again, good meeting. Minutes are attached to the agenda. There's also a nice article on MTSS in there for your reference too. So, Ms. Roland Miller, anything? You take better notes than I do. Anything else worth highlighting?
That was thorough. I do want to point out before, because we do bash on the state funding a lot, we are reimbursed, the teachers, we are reimbursed for the cost of that training. The additional training we are not, that is required, but the initial training we are reimbursed for. I'd like to move to item 11, Superintendent's report. Mr. Hausler. Oh, you need a microphone. Can we do that? Thanks, Mr. Drew.
All right. So I'll move quickly through this, but wanted to highlight that we had 10 musicians right here from Perrysburg High School who are familiar with performing on the stage, performed at Wade Public Library, music around the world, and this is the very celebrated Perrysburg Select Strings Chamber Ensemble, so We're very proud of these students and what a great setting, and it was very well attended. I think that was the end of the clicker, so. Okay. Not good. All right. So next is the, we had the Perrysburg High School dance team perform 4 routines, and they performed Game Day, which is the dance team performing at games at halftime at either basketball or football, hip hop, contemporary, and so at the OASSA Dance Regional Qualifiers, they did qualify to compete in all 4 of the routines that they performed. So that is very exciting, and we're wishing them all the best later this week as they compete for their state championship in their division. So that's something that is exciting. One of the things that I know I look forward to each year is the Penn Career Outstanding Alumni program that they have at Penn Career Center. And we were very fortunate this year to have one of our Perrysburg alum who was honored. And Alyssa Johnson was a 2013 graduate. She works at Penna, is in the area of culinary arts, and has her own business on the side. So Alyssa's Cakes and Confections. So if you're looking for somebody to do something along those lines, she does really great work. So very dedicated and hard worker, and it was great to hear her story at those events. And so I know for us, we had educators who were part of a new book that was published. So it is implementing reflective practices in the K-12 classroom. Soap, and that's not putting soap in a student's mouth. So this is actually talking about subjective observation, assessing, and planning. And Matt Boggs, Dominic Helmstetter, Amy Farrar, and Sarah Campbell, representing the cross-section of really outstanding teachers here at Perrysburg. And the book was edited and authored by one of our alum, who's a professor, Joanna Weaver Dr. Weaver is at BGSU. So very cool to see our staff being pulled in and their expertise being shared in an important publication. So also back to the community, Perrysburg Christians United and Timothy's Perrysburg Foundation continues to answer the call to help feed those in the community that need that extra support. And we know that there are families that do struggle and individuals who struggle who rely on this. And so our folks continue to do different kinds of drives to donate food and other items that are needed. So we're very proud of those efforts that are ongoing throughout the district. So the speech and debate team has won their 4th tournament championship this season. So they're on a roll. So that's very exciting to see them continue to thrive. And then that theme of giving back, and our students have a great sense of that here at Perrysburg, and we are appreciative of our staff that really fosters that. But in family and consumer science, which we have here at the high school, pillowcases that will be donated to local children's hospitals, and you get kind of a glimpse of the types of varieties and certainly very child-friendly pillowcases. So if you're thinking about coming back to your room after tests and things and seeing something bright like that created by a student who's thinking of you, that's really remarkable. So online pre-registration for next school year for kindergartners is open. And I'll just let this sink in a little bit, but we're registering the class of 2038. So some of us in this room might not be around in 2038, but we're rooting for you. But we're very excited about that. So it's an exciting time to see. And those numbers, we never really know exactly where those numbers are. So we're anxious to see how the registration goes. But I know things will become very, very busy in central office as we begin to register those students and families. And then the High School Key Club, which is another service group, There could be a lot of extra, if you need to get a table on Friday, January 31st, you might be out of luck because the Key Club is hosting a PJ play date where families can drop off their children, and it's free babysitting. And we sometimes have difficulty finding parents at 8 o'clock when it's time to pick up your children, but we're excited about this opportunity, and I think there'll be a lot of reservations being made that date. So what's great about this is, again, it's that continued theme where there's no charge, but they're accepting a donation to the Full Experience Fund that we have here with the Schools Foundation, which is raising and collecting funds to give to students so that they can have all the same kinds of experiences that students have and might not have the resources to do that. So so that leads us up to something that was talked about at a previous previous board meetings, and that is facility usage. So I wanted to just kind of touch on that a little bit. And our custodians, their goal is, of course, to care and clean the facilities for our students and staff. And that's their classroom, and those student spaces are their top priority. And supporting outside groups, in facilities, we've been great partners over the years. And if we have a custodian here and there's a community group that wants to come in, we have made that happen, and our staff has worked really hard to accommodate that. They've gone over and above what is needed to make sure that those opportunities are there. But with the reductions that we have in place, we know that that is very challenging for us, to maintain. And as we look at trying to take care of that core responsibility that our custodians have, caring for those outside groups the way that we have and the number of people that come in with some of those events is really not sustainable. So we highlighted that even though the reductions are to go in place next school year, we know that that we have individuals who are retiring, who are moving, taking other jobs, knowing that the cuts are imminent. And we understand that, and individuals do not want to take a job knowing that that job's going to be eliminated in a few months. So we're beginning to feel the impact of those reductions today and making adjustments. And I know just the other day at the Commodore we had an outside group, and the administrators were there and sticking around to open and close the building so that those groups could have rehearsals and other kinds of things. So that's a challenge. I think the other thing that is happening right now is the number of district-wide custodian subs that we have. So when a custodian goes off, is their 12-month employees on a week-long vacation, and then you have another sub that might be sick or taking care of a loved one that's sick, we only have 4 district-wide custodians. And they are limited in what they choose to serve. So we have one custodian that only wants to work in buildings in walking distance of their home, so they're not going to be at the other buildings. We have another one that's very limited and retired and will pick up hours here and there, but has a very active life as a retiree. So that has created another hardship as well, because not only have we asked the custodians to take on extra responsibilities, but now with the lack of subs that we have, when a coworker is out, with a personal illness or on vacation, there isn't anyone to fill that role either. So it's really created a challenge. And so just to give an idea of the number of activities, so through December 6th, we have had over 7,000 activities in our buildings after school. And here's a breakdown of where those are happening. So those are our activities and outside activities. But again, whether it's our activity or an outside group's activity, the custodian is going about cleaning the classrooms. They have to work around the group. They have to come back on a night like tonight, or in the winter. They have to continue to come back to make sure that hallway is not wet, so there's slip and falls. They have to check on paper products and soap to make sure things are going. So they're constantly being pulled away from their jobs to make sure that things are being taken care of for those that are coming in and using our buildings. And when we're fully staffed, that was something that we can continue to do, and happy to do it, but we're not in that position. When you break down the number of activities that are using our facilities, the majority, 34% of those after-school activities are for community groups. So out of all the events that are taking place where we have to unlock an area, unlock a door, 34% of those times are for outside groups, and you can see a breakdown of some of the internal, practices and other performances here. So we had a meeting with head custodians, we had a meeting with James Makus, Director of Operations, Jason Bloomer, who's in charge of custodians. We talked to the principals about building usage, and we are wanting to implement some changes that we wanted to share with you as relative to the challenges that we're facing, because we can't continue to be the good neighbor that we were before. We can't continue to have our staff be really overwhelmed with the job and really pulling them away from that core responsibility. So our recommendations that we'd like to roll out on February 1st is beginning to limit the amount of time that outside groups have access to our buildings and then the locations of those buildings. And so you begin to see what that breakdown is on Monday through Friday and also on Saturday. So as we begin to get into this, again, when the building is open, we have groups that are using it until, and we've had board meetings that have gone late, and you've seen practice taking place, in the Commodore. And they're events where we lock up, we're the last ones out, we lock up, and there's events taking place. That is really, really challenging when we don't have enough custodians to cover that. And so this allows, a little bit of a compromise of allowing these groups to still have access to the buildings. The amount of time that they have access will be limited. So we're sorry, but those groups are going to have to make adjustments, and that's the last thing that we want to do. But at the same time, having a limit can close up the building for our custodians, and they can focus on trying to get the rest of the building cleaned. At the elementary levels, we have 2 custodians in the evening, and one of them is out, one of them is at on vacation because they're 12-month employees, and there's no sub coming. And so that person has the whole building, and they've got to keep an eye on those activities that are happening. So, and the Commodore, with the changes that they're doing, putting the focus on the buildings, that is a central office building, and what they're saying moving forward is the dedicated custodians that we have now that are there, we're pulling them to fill in throughout the day and not having that evening person. And, which is really sad, because a number of years ago, we changed the custodian's position at the junior high and high school to work Tuesday through Saturday, so that we'd have a custodian in those buildings, so that outside groups would not have to be charged to bring a custodian in at overtime. So we have really tried to make it very accessible and friendly to these groups, and we're at a point where we just can't do that. And so this was from the people that are doing the jobs, that care about those groups. This is what they're saying that they need to have happen. And then on March 1st, we're looking at taking another step, because we know those indoor activities will be done. And before groups begin to line up to use those, we really wanted to just keep those outside groups at 3 locations, because again, at the elementaries, the Commodore building, we just don't have the staff to continue to offer those kind of hours. The staff is saying if we could shut it off now, we need to. So kind of slowly phasing this in, getting our commitments answered to those groups that are there now with an adjustment, and we'll go through and notify those groups and work with them on what is possible. But it's sad that we have to make these adjustments, but that's where we are. So, and so we'll begin to communicate with those groups, those users, about the February 1st change, and dig into how can we help them get through that. And then, of course, on March 1st, most of those groups are wrapped up, but trying to direct the groups that might be in the elementaries to those locations, because they have a few more custodians there than the 2 in each of those buildings, or in the Commodore's case, in the evening.
Mr. Hausler, can you just clarify, if we were looking at this chart as of right now, is the whole thing green? right now? I mean, is that, in terms of what, I'm trying to get the before and the after understanding of this.
So this is what we're proposing, because right now we have groups in the buildings until 9:30.
Okay. So there's a lot more green on this chart if we
Yes.
talk about what is happening right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we wanted to respect that, those groups, and you see kind of a variation of the times where it's 8 o'clock, because the staff did a great job in and saying, okay, if we could keep it open until 8, then these groups, it's gonna impact them, but not as badly, and we can work around that, to get through this time. So these recommendations, we're very thoughtful in terms of how do we land on this.
So on slide 17, you've got, do we want to change it to 4:30 to 6:30? Is that?
I'm sorry, and thank you for clarifying that, Ms. Larimer. So this was actually just a slide that we took from an earlier, like, hey, we're thinking about doing this, and perhaps it could lead to this. And then after we've had the conversations, we've actually landed at these times.
Oh.
Yeah, so I apologize, that was a slide that we used at an earlier presentation before we had the meetings and really dug into it, just to say like, hey, we're thinking about this, it could lead to doing, something, like that. But again, at that time, we were hearing from people, like, you need to shut it down at 6:30. And then what ended up happening is sitting down, and again, it shows the dedication of our staff saying, we can make it work, we can go to 8 o'clock, for that month. And that's why that time is later than what was first kind of shown, like, hey, we're thinking about some pretty dramatic changes. So I think it shows the process and evolution of how do we continue to get folks to be able to use those buildings.
Just one more question then. On slide 19, it starts on March 1st. How long does that continue? Does that continue through the rest of 25?
So that would get us through the end of the year, and then yes, and then we will evaluate, where we are and what can work, and having the same kind of process where we're bringing staff in and saying, okay, here are the requests, here is the time that's needed, what are the things that we can do.
Okay.
We did have a conversation about how inside clubs and activities are using those spaces. So we may be coming out in the fall and saying, listen, if you're a club, if you moderate a club, if you're in charge of a club, for those that are remaining next year, we might need to have you wrap it up by this time. And right now it's not. And they said, we're okay now. So we'll let the internal groups still, if they want to meet at 8 o'clock, they can do that as an internal group, because that's our students and those are internal activities. And they're usually, as they explained it to me, those clubs activities are inside the classroom. They're not bringing in people, they're not tracking in stuff. They're usually in that teacher or person's classroom or space. And they said, we can make that work, but next fall there could be some changes with that. So.
Okay.
And that concludes the report.
Just another quick question. If there was a group, for instance, currently meeting in one of the elementary schools, would they be able to, as of March 1st, shift over? Or could they request to be in HPI or the junior high or the high school instead?
So they will take a look at those pending requests and see how many are there, and then begin to notify each of those groups and say, hey, listen, here, this is where we are, and we're going to have to make some changes. How can we accommodate that?
Okay.
So
Do that through conversation with them.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
So
Moss.
we'll be sending out this information and beginning to work with those groups now on those changes. So.
That moves us into our consent agenda item 13.1. Are there any items that people wanted to, I skipped one? Oh, board discussion. I'm sorry, that's right. I did skip over that. So this is an opportunity, especially for the superintendent committees or any other items that board members wanted to bring up to comment, mainly operational committees, I think, at this point. But do you have anything?
Okay. So I can talk about Perrysburg Schools Foundation. So meeting was last week,
and I just wanted to point out, what's going on and how they support the district. At the end of December, which was the end of the first half of the fiscal year for PSF, they have raised nearly $450,000 from 1,950 donors. There was an additional donation of $37,500 from York Chevrolet last week, which we used for funding the Ruling Our Experience, the ROCKS program, and securing the newest addition to the facility dog pack family, which is Liv at Frank. And a couple other things that we don't always talk about, and we need to look at the big impact PSF plays in the district. Since Thanksgiving, they funded $12,000 worth of Clever Touches at the junior high for 8th grade science. They secured $10,000 plus in donated services and products to refresh the staff lounge at Fort Meigs. Nearly $4,000 in new pottery wheels and equipment at the high school. They approved $15,000 for safety tumbling mats at HPI. That was at last week's meeting. They've approved $5,300 plus installation of a new kiln at Woodland. That's just a few of the things they've done in the last 6 weeks. So that would normally, and that would normally come out of the general fund if it was there. Or it wouldn't happen because the money's not there. PI spending, or, as you said, things that our students and staff would not have. On top of this, PSF provides ongoing funds for programs like the Jacket Way, the Full Experience Fund, ROCKS, Facility Dogs, HIP, Classroom Grants, Scholarships, and all these have a positive impact on our schools and are made possible through PSF and the Development Office. And most importantly, are very generous donors to the district, which we are very, very thankful for. And I just wanted to make sure that that was put out there because there's a lot of things that go on with PSF that not everybody's aware of. That, helps us, but not comes out of the general fund.
Thank you. Thank you for calling us back to go to that. And that moves us to 13.1 consent agenda. Are there any items people wanted to pull from the consent agenda?
Move on the consent agenda.
Okay, motion, Mr. Baggington?
Second.
Dr. Rufford, second. All those in favor,
Could I
roll call,
just
please.
wanted
Sorry.
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 Just wanted to highlight, we have a couple of familiar faces that are retiring. So Mike Heider, who's a bus driver and has done a great job, is stepping off the bus, so to speak. Also, Debbie Reddick, who is in charge of all the school nurses, and certainly someone who has really done a tremendous job in that role. And again, she was a school nurse, and we didn't have school nurses in the elementaries. And over time, because of her advocacy and dedication, we slowly began to get to a place today where we have a nurse in every building. And I can't imagine how we did it without that. But secretaries played nurse and bandaged kids and all those kinds of things. So we're very grateful for her leadership. Working with her through COVID, I saw a side of her and the compassion care. It was a really challenging time, and we were very fortunate to have her when we had her, and I hope she enjoys retirement. Also, Chris Snyder, who works with Mr. Abke in his office, is resigning and works heavily with the school's foundation, and that's a position that was set to be eliminated, and he took a job with another local foundation, so he's going to continue to work in that capacity, in that field. So we wish him well as he steps off and continues to expand his experiences in giving. So.
Thank you for highlighting them. Will we have a chance before July 1st that we'll be recognizing Mrs. Reddick too? Okay. And we wish Chris well. I'll miss seeing him in the Commodore building. Okay. Mr. Drewer, roll call, please.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Dr. Rufford.
Yes.
Ms. Menke.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. That takes us to 19.1, board discussion for new business. Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of the investigation of complaints or charges against a public employee and conference with the board attorney to discuss matters which may be subject to pending court action. So move Mr. Bennington, second Dr. Refford. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes.
Dr. Refford.
Yes.
Ms. Menke. Ms. Larimer. Ms. Rowland Miller.
Yes. After we come out of executive session, there will be no additional business, and we will just be immediately adjourning the meeting.